The station orbiting the blue world below was silent except for the soft hum of machinery. The human technician named Daniel sat alone in the communications bay, repairing a translator circuit. It was late. The other engineers had gone to rest and the wide-view window showed 1,000 stars. He liked working at this hour when everything felt calm and empty. Then the console lit up. A new transmission blinked on the screen. Unidentified origin, high-band encryption, royal clearance level. Daniel frowned. He wasn't cleared for that kind of contact, but the system automatically decrypted the message and opened a channel. "Is this the human engineer?" a gentle voice asked. It was soft, melodic, and curious. Daniel leaned closer to the mic. "Yes, this is Engineer Daniel." "Who's speaking?" "My name is Sarai," the voice said. "Princess Sarai of the Othari Empire. I was told your people are different." I wanted to understand. Her tone wasn't demanding like other royals he'd heard of. It was curious, almost shy. Daniel hesitated, unsure if this was some kind of test. "I'm just a maintenance tech, Your Highness. I'm not sure I can explain much about humanity." "That's why I chose you," she said quietly. "I didn't want an ambassador. I wanted a real human." The line went quiet for a moment and Daniel could hear faint music in the background, something slow and emotional. He sat back and smiled a little. "All right, Princess. What do you want to talk about?" "Everything," she said simply. That was how it started. At first, the talks were short. 10 minutes here, half an hour there. She asked about rain, about oceans, about the way humans laughed when they were nervous. She told him about her world, a vast planet covered in crystal forests that sang when the wind passed through them. She said her people had no laughter, only soft tones they used for comfort. Daniel described a storm on Earth, the smell of wet soil, the sound of thunder rolling across a valley. She listened in silence, then asked him to describe it again slower. He could almost picture her leaning closer to the receiver, eyes closed, trying to imagine the feeling. They kept talking for weeks. Every night when the station grew quiet, the channel would open and her voice would fill the room. He started looking forward to it. Sometimes she made him laugh. Her curiosity was endless. She once asked if humans really built their homes on dirt instead of levitating platforms. When he said yes, she gasped as if he'd confessed to living in a cave. Another time she asked if humans slept beside fire. Daniel told her about camping trips when he was young and she listened with fascination. "Your world sounds warm," she said one night. "Not just the fire, but the people." Daniel thought about that. "Sometimes it is," he said. "Sometimes not. But I think we try." There was a long pause. Then she whispered, "We don't try anymore." That night she told him about her court, the endless ceremonies, the silence, the way she was expected to speak only when spoken to. Her people prized perfection of form and mind. Emotions were considered weakness. She said she had begun to feel like a statue carved by tradition. Daniel listened quietly. "That sounds lonely," he said. "It is," she replied. "But when I speak to you, I don't feel it." He didn't know what to say. He could only sit there feeling something strange in his chest, something warm, dangerous, and human. Weeks passed into months. The rest of the crew noticed Daniel's late hours but didn't question him. He finished his duties early every day just so he could be at the console by night. The alien princess had become the brightest part of his existence. One evening, Sarai's image appeared on the holographic screen for the first time. The royal encryption lifted and Daniel finally saw her. She was sitting in a vast chamber of glass and light, her skin faintly silver in color, her eyes large and violet, filled with a strange sadness. Her hair shimmered like spun metal, braided in patterns that caught the glow of the chamber. "So that's you," Daniel said softly. "And you're human," she said with a small smile. "You look different from what I imagine. I thought humans would have harder faces." "Sorry to disappoint," he joked. "You don't disappoint," she said, and her voice softened in a way that made him look away. They talked for hours that night. She asked about music and he played an old Earth song, something gentle with guitar and voice. She closed her eyes and said it felt like sunlight. He asked her to sing in her language, and when she did, the sound filled the room like wind through crystal. "You have a beautiful voice," he said. "I've never sung for anyone before," she replied. "It's forbidden in the royal house." Then I guess I'm lucky, Daniel said quietly. There was silence after that. A comfortable, deep silence, then she asked, almost in a whisper, Daniel, are you single? He froze. For a moment he thought he'd misheard. I mean, she added quickly, her tone flustered. Humans have partners, yes? I was just curious if you have one. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, trying to hide the smile creeping onto his face. No, I don't. It's just me out here. She looked away, but he could see the faint glow rise in her cheeks, an alien blush, soft and violet. I see. I was only asking because I've been told that humans form emotional bonds through conversation. I wanted to know if you had already formed one. He chuckled. Is that what we've been doing all this time? Forming a bond? I don't know, she said. But I feel something when I speak to you. I don't feel it with anyone else. Daniel looked at the screen, at the alien woman sitting in a palace light years away, and for the first time, he realized how deep their talks had gone. What are you feeling? He asked softly. She hesitated. Connection, warmth, curiosity, perhaps even longing. Daniel leaned back, unsure how to respond. Part of him wanted to cut the line before he said something foolish. But another part, stronger, braver, wanted to know her more. He smiled faintly. That's pretty human, you know, is it? She asked. Yeah, he said. That's what it feels like when you start to care about someone. The princess lowered her gaze. Then maybe I'm becoming a little human too. The line went quiet again. Outside the station window, a comet passed by, its icy tail streaking across the stars. Daniel watched it in silence, wondering if she could see it from her world. I wish you could see this, he said. It's beautiful. I wish I could be there, she whispered. They spoke until the comm system shut down automatically from exhaustion of power. Daniel stayed at the console long after the screen went dark, staring at his reflection. He knew he was in trouble. Not political trouble, though that might come too, but something deeper. He'd started feeling something for a woman he'd never touched, from a world he might never visit, but he couldn't stop. He didn't want to. The next night, the transmission came again. She looked brighter somehow, her tone lighter. Daniel, I've been thinking, she said. Would humans ever meet someone from another species? Truly meet? He smiled. It's happened before, but not like this. I want to change that, she said softly. I want to see you, he blinked. See me? You mean in person, she interrupted. There is a delegation leaving for the outer colonies. I can come with them. I want to understand humanity with my own eyes. Daniel's heart started to race. He had no idea what it meant, what kind of political or personal chaos it might bring, but deep down, he knew he wanted it too. He looked into her violet eyes and said quietly, Then I'll be here. Her smile grew and her image flickered with static as the signal faded. Good night, human. Good night, princess. The screen went dark again, leaving Daniel alone with the soft hum of the station. But for the first time, it didn't feel empty. He leaned back in his chair, a faint smile on his face, and whispered to himself, She's really coming. Outside, the stars burned brighter, as if they were listening. Days passed slowly after their last conversation. Daniel found it hard to focus on his work. The thought of the alien princess coming to meet him made his heart race every time he remembered her words. He had replayed the call more than once, staring at her soft smile before the screen had gone dark. He wasn't sure if it was real or just some dream born from the loneliness of deep space, but the message from Central Command proved otherwise. A royal envoy from the Othari Empire was scheduled to arrive at the orbital station within 10 days. The official note said it was for cultural and scientific exchange, but Daniel knew exactly who was on that ship. The crew began preparing for the visit, cleaning every corridor, repainting every wall. The command officers practiced greetings and speech protocols. Daniel stayed busy checking the docking systems, pretending he wasn't counting down the hours. At night, he sat near the same console where it all began. The connection had gone silent since that last talk. No new messages, no signals, nothing. He wondered if she had changed her mind. Maybe the Royal Council had forbidden her. Maybe she had realized that meeting a human technician was beneath her status. He tried to push those thoughts away, but they came back every time the lights dimmed and the stars filled the view outside. When the day finally came, the entire station waited in silence. The Othari ship appeared like a pearl among the stars, smooth, oval, glowing faintly with soft blue light. It was larger than any human vessel Daniel had ever seen. Its arrival made the whole structure tremble slightly, like a heartbeat echoing through metal. The docking clamps locked and a corridor extended to connect both ships. The airlock opened slowly, releasing a faint mist. Daniel stood at the back of the welcome group, trying not to look nervous. He didn't know what to expect. From the mist, several tall figures stepped forward. Their skin shimmered in different tones of silver and pale gold. They wore long, flowing garments that looked alive like liquid fabric. Their faces were calm, unreadable. And then she appeared. Princess Sarai walked among them, her violet eyes shining under the corridor lights. Her movements were graceful but uncertain, as if she was stepping into a dream. Her hair caught the glow of the docking bay, scattering faint reflections like sunlight through water. Daniel felt his chest tighten. She was real. Not a hologram, not a voice through static, but a living being standing only a few meters away. The station commander stepped forward to greet the delegation with formal words, but Daniel barely heard them. Sarai's gaze wandered past the officers and found him. Their eyes met for the first time in person, and she smiled, soft, genuine, the same way she had done on the screen. After the ceremony, the visitors were shown to their assigned quarters. Sarai was given a suite near the observation deck, with a clear view of the planet below. Daniel was ordered to assist with the translation systems and provide technical support during the delegation's stay. It was a simple task, but he knew what it really meant, an excuse to keep him close to her. When he arrived at her room to check the translator, she was standing by the window, looking out at the planet's oceans far below. She didn't turn around immediately. "So this is where you live," she said softly. "Not really live," he replied with a small smile. "More like survive." She turned to face him. Seeing her up close was almost overwhelming. Her eyes reflected both strength and sadness, and there was something human in the way she tilted her head when she looked at him. "You didn't answer my last message," he said quietly. "They restricted transmissions during the journey," she replied. "I wanted to, but I couldn't," he nodded. "I thought maybe you changed your mind." Her expression softened. "I didn't." He smiled, then crouched by the console, pretending to check a wire just to hide the warmth in his face. She watched him work, her hands clasped in front of her. "Your people are very precise," she said after a moment. "Every system has a purpose, every tool a name. On Author, everything is built to look perfect, but few things truly work. Here, everything works, even if it isn't perfect." Daniel laughed quietly. "That might be the best description of humans I've ever heard." She walked closer, stopping just beside him. "You make flaws sound beautiful." He looked up at her, caught off guard. "Maybe they are," he said softly. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the ship filled the silence between them. Later that evening, Sarai requested permission to see the lower decks. Officially, it was for technical observation, but Daniel knew she just wanted to see the human side of the station. The kitchens, the mess halls, the sleeping quarters. The commander hesitated, but finally agreed under escort. Daniel guided her through the narrow halls, explaining everything he could in simple words. She asked about everything. The way humans stored water, why the walls had scratches, why people left small photos taped beside their bunks. "Their memories," Daniel explained. "Reminders of home." She touched one of the photos gently, a small picture of a man with his family. "Your species carries the past in small images. We store ours in crystal archives, but I think yours feels warmer." He smiled. "Maybe because we forget too easily. Photos help us remember." As they walked, some crew members looked at her with awe. Others whispered quietly. But Sarai seemed unbothered. She smiled at anyone who met her eyes. For a princess raised in silence, she carried herself with a kind of humble curiosity that made everyone around her relax. When they reached the maintenance bay, Daniel showed her the observation window. Outside, the curve of the planet glowed beneath them. Blue oceans, white clouds, and endless night beyond. Sarai stared at it in silence. "It's more beautiful than I imagined," she whispered. "It's not even Earth," Daniel said. "Just a colony world. But I like to think every world looks beautiful from far away." She turned to him. "Do humans ever get tired of beauty?" He shook his head. "Never. Maybe that's why we keep searching for it." For the first time, she smiled in a way that made her seem less like a royal and more like someone lost, someone trying to find where she belonged. That night, after she returned to her quarters, Daniel found a small crystal placed on his workstation. When he touched it, it glowed faintly and projected her voice. "Thank you for showing me your world," her recorded message said. "I understand now why you smile when you speak of home. I wish I had a place that made me feel the same." He replayed the message twice, then set the crystal beside his bed before falling asleep with a quiet heart. Over the next few days, Sarai continued exploring the station with Daniel. She learned to use human tools, tried human food, even asked to join the engineers during a repair session. When they handed her a wrench, she turned it over in her hands, smiling like a child with a new toy. "Be careful, Princess," Daniel said teasingly. "That thing bites back if you're not gentle." She laughed softly. "I can handle it." But what neither of them noticed was the tension growing among the delegation. The royal guards didn't approve of her wandering the human station without protection. They whispered in the halls, sending reports back to their empire. Daniel could sense the unease but tried to ignore it. One evening, as the ship rotated to face the sunrise, Sarai met him again by the window. The glow of the planet painted her silver skin in gold. "Daniel," she said quietly, "I think I understand what I've been missing all my life. You speak of small things, sunsets, laughter, mistakes, and yet they mean so much. On my world, we only speak of duty. I used to think that was strength. Now I think it's emptiness." He watched her eyes reflect the rising light. "You're stronger than you think," he said. "You came all this way just to feel something real." She turned toward him. "And what if the thing I feel is for someone I shouldn't?" Daniel's chest tightened. "Then you have the same problem I do." For a second, they just looked at each other. No words, no movement, only the hum of the ship and the glow of dawn washing over them. A sudden sound broke the silence. The door opened and one of her guards stepped in, face stern. "Your Highness, we must return. The Council demands immediate contact." Sarai's expression changed, a flicker of worry in her eyes. She looked back at Daniel, her lips parting as if to say something, but no words came out. The guard waited. "I'll come," she said finally, her voice calm but trembling slightly. As she walked past Daniel, her hand brushed his for just a heartbeat, light, quick like a secret goodbye, and then she was gone, leaving him staring at the door as it closed behind her. That night, the communication lines from the Othari ship went dark. The delegation sealed itself off. Daniel tried to reach her channel, but there was no response. He waited for hours by the console, hoping for her voice, her message, anything. But the silence returned, heavy and endless. He didn't know it yet, but forces beyond both their control were already moving. The next 2 days passed in silence. The Othari ship stayed docked, but no one saw the princess again. The royal guards no longer walked the halls politely. They moved with cold precision, avoiding contact with the humans. Rumors spread across the station. Some said the princess was ill. Others whispered that the council had discovered something inappropriate about her time with the human technician. Daniel didn't care about rumors. He just wanted to hear her voice again. Every night he sat in the communications bay, staring at the dark console. The screen stayed black, the channel sealed. He thought about the last time they had spoken, the way her hand brushed his, the look in her eyes before she was taken away. By the third night, he couldn't take the silence anymore. He overrode the encryption protocols and accessed the secondary comm systems that linked to the Othari docking corridor. It was risky. If the command found out, he could lose his position. But he didn't care. He typed in her code sequence manually, the one she had once shown him when they first started talking. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the console flickered. Her voice came through, faint and filled with static. "Daniel?" He froze, heart pounding. "Sarai, are you okay?" The image on the screen appeared slowly, her face pale, her eyes tired. She was in a dark chamber with dim blue lights behind her. "I shouldn't be speaking to you," she whispered. "They found out about our talks. They said it's forbidden for a royal to have private contact with an alien." "Alien?" he said quietly. "That's what they call us?" "Yes," she said softly. "But I don't see you that way." He leaned closer. "Then why are they keeping you there?" "They think you've influenced me," she said. "They believe I've lost discipline, that I'm starting to think like a human." Daniel clenched his fists. "Thinking like a human isn't a crime. To them it is," she said. "They fear emotion. They fear change." The image trembled as she looked away. "They want to send me back tomorrow." They've already ordered preparations. I tried to resist, but they said I'd shame the royal line if I stayed. Daniel felt his chest grow heavy. Sarai, don't let them take you. We can talk to command. I'll find a way. She looked back at him, sadness filling her eyes. You can't, they don't listen to humans. This visit was just for appearance. They wanted to prove that the Empire still controls its borders and its people. He took a deep breath. Then come with me, her eyes widened. What? I mean it, he said. There's an escape pod on the lower bay. It can launch before their ship undocks. You could stay here. No one would stop you once they leave orbit. She stared at him as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. You would risk your career, maybe your life, for me. He met her gaze. You already know the answer. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she whispered, If I come, I can never return. They'll erase me from the royal line. He smiled sadly. Then you'll just have to start a new one. Her lips trembled, half a smile, half tears. I'll send a signal if I decide, she said quietly. If you hear it, come to the lower bay, alone. The line cut out and the screen went dark again. That night, Daniel barely slept. Every few minutes, he looked at the console, waiting for the signal. Outside, the stars drifted slowly past the station window, cold and endless. He thought about what it meant if she came. He thought about what it meant if she didn't. Hours later, when the ship's chronometer reached dawn, the alarm on his console blinked once. An incoming code, short and faint. He recognized the pattern immediately. 3 pulses. The signal she used when she first called him months ago. He didn't hesitate. He slipped out of his quarters, moving quietly through the sleeping corridors. The hum of the engines masked his footsteps. When he reached the lower bay, the lights were dim. A soft glow came from one of the maintenance pods. Sarai stood there, wrapped in a dark travel cloak, her silver hair hidden under a hood. Her eyes were bright with fear and determination. I wasn't sure you'd come, she whispered. I wasn't sure you'd actually send the signal, he said. She looked at him, then smiled faintly. You humans always act first and think later, he grinned. And somehow it always works. The pod door opened with a soft hiss. But before they could step inside, heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor. The sound of metal against metal, guards. Sarai's face went pale. They know. Daniel grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the pod. Go, get in. The first guard appeared at the far end of the hall, shouting something in Othari. Blue light from their armor reflected off the walls. Daniel slammed the pod hatch, hit the launch sequence, and the pod shot out from the bay like a bullet into space. The acceleration threw them back into their seats. The stars blurred and the glow of the station shrank behind them. Daniel could hear the alarms from both ships over the comms, voices shouting commands in panic. Trajectory locked, the pod's computer said. Destination, unregistered orbital path. Sarai exhaled shakily. They'll come after us. Let them try, Daniel said, gripping the controls. The pod drifted toward the shadow of the nearby moon. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the thrusters. Finally, she turned to him. You really did it. You just stole a princess from her empire. He looked at her and smiled faintly. No, you saved yourself. I just gave you a ride. She let out a quiet laugh, the first real one he had ever heard from her. It was soft and beautiful. You risked everything for me, Daniel, he shrugged. You made me believe something was worth risking it for. She reached out slowly, her fingers brushing his hand. I never thought anyone would fight for me. Not in my world. He looked into her violet eyes. Then welcome to mine. For a moment, it felt like nothing outside the pod existed. No guards, no empire, no distance between stars. Just 2 people caught between worlds, breathing the same air. But the peace didn't last. A warning alarm flashed on the screen. 2 Othari interceptors approaching from behind. Sarai's expression hardened. They won't stop. Daniel gripped the controls. They'll have to catch us first. He pushed the pod into a dive, skimming along the edge of the moon's surface. Laser bursts flashed past them, lighting the gray terrain. The pod shook violently as one beam grazed the hull. Sparks flew from the control panel. We can't outrun them for long, she said. Daniel checked the radar. There's a canyon ahead. If we drop low enough, maybe they'll lose our signal. The pod plunged into the moon's shadowed valley, weaving between jagged cliffs. The interceptors followed, but their sensors struggled in the magnetic field. One struck the canyon wall and exploded in a flash of blue light. The other turned back, retreating to report. When the silence returned, Sarai looked at him, eyes wide. "You did it," he smiled, breathing hard. "I told you humans act first." They landed in a narrow ravine hidden from scanners. Daniel shut down the engines. The inside of the pod filled with quiet again. Only the faint hum of the life support system left. Sarai removed her hood. Her hair shimmered in the faint light. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Daniel looked at her. "Now we wait until the patrols leave. After that, we'll head toward the human colonies." "You'll be safe there?" She nodded slowly, but her expression was uncertain. "And you? What happens to you when they find out you helped me?" He looked out at the stars through the small window. "I'll deal with that later. Right now you come first." Her gaze softened. She leaned closer, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "You always say things like that. You make everything sound simple." "Maybe it is," he said with a small smile. "Sometimes the right thing is the hard thing, but it's still the right thing." She looked at him for a long moment, then whispered, "You really are different from us." He turned to meet her eyes.
"Maybe, or maybe we're not so different."
"You just never had someone who believed in you." Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, she looked away and a tear slipped down her silver cheek. He reached up gently, wiping it away with his thumb. "Hey, don't cry. You're free now." She nodded, trying to smile. "Free, yes. But freedom feels heavy." "It always does," he said softly. Outside the pod, the stars glowed like a million silent witnesses. Inside, two lives that were never meant to cross sat side by side, bound by choices neither could undo. Sarai leaned back in her seat, closing her eyes. "Daniel," she whispered, "if I never go back, will I still have a place?" He looked at her and said quietly, "You already do." The silence between them was warm this time, not lonely, but far away. In the darkness of space, the Othari royal ship was changing course. The chase wasn't over. The Othari royal ship had changed its course. From the shadow of the moon, Daniel and Sarai could see its faint light move like a silent predator through the black sky. It was searching for them. Daniel adjusted the pod's sensors, keeping power low to avoid detection. The small space smelled faintly of metal and ozone. He looked at Sarai sitting across from him, her hands folded, her eyes fixed on the stars. "They won't stop," she said quietly. "I know," Daniel replied, "but I won't let them take you." "They will call this an act of war," she whispered. "A royal captured by a human." He smiled slightly. "You ran away, remember? I didn't capture you. I just refused to let you go alone." Her eyes softened. "You make everything sound simple again." He glanced at the small radar screen. "Simple or not, we have to move. They're sweeping the canyon. We need to reach the dark side of the moon before sunrise." The pod's small engines hummed as he guided it through the narrow ravine. Outside, dust clouds drifted like ghosts. Inside, silence grew heavier. After a while, Sarai spoke again. "Daniel, if they find us, they won't kill you. They'll do worse. They'll erase you from every record. It will be as if you never existed." He smiled faintly. "Then I guess you'll have to remember me for both of us." She looked at him, her expression trembling between sorrow and admiration. "You humans? You always face fear by smiling at it." He shrugged. "Maybe that's how we survive." A sudden flash lit up the sky outside. The sensors beeped sharply. A scout drone had spotted them. "Hold on," Daniel said, pushing the pod downward. The hull rattled as they descended into a crater, dust rising around them like a fog. He switched to manual control, cutting all power to hide from scanners. The pod landed hard, sliding against the rocky floor before stopping with a thud. Silence followed. Only their breathing filled the air. The radar showed the drone passing overhead, scanning the surface. Daniel held his breath, counting the seconds. Then slowly, the signal moved away. "They're gone," he said softly. Sarai released a trembling sigh. "How long can we keep running?" "As long as it takes," he said. He opened the storage compartment, pulling out emergency rations and a small oxygen tank. He handed her a mask. "If they scan again, we'll step outside. The rocks can hide our heat signatures." She took the mask, her silver fingers brushing his hand. "You think of everything." "Old habit," he said. "Humans are good at improvising." They stepped out of the pod into the silent canyon. The stars above were sharp and endless. There was no air, only the quiet hum of their suits. The ground was covered in gray dust that sparkled faintly in starlight. Sarai stood beside him, looking up. "It's strange," she said through the comm link. "Your world has blue skies, mine has glass forests, and yet here we are, on a place with nothing. And it still feels beautiful." Daniel looked at her, the faint glow from her suit reflecting in her violet eyes. "Maybe beauty isn't in the place. Maybe it's who you're with." She turned toward him slowly. "Then I'm seeing beauty for the first time." He smiled, but before he could answer, a low rumble came from above. The Othari ship had found them. A searchlight swept across the canyon, cutting through the shadows. Daniel grabbed her hand. "Back to the pod." They ran across the uneven ground, boots kicking up dust. The light passed over them once, then again, growing brighter. Daniel pushed her inside the hatch, slamming it shut. "They've locked on," Sarai said, panic in her voice. "Then we'll make them lose it," he said, firing the thrusters. The pod shot upward, climbing fast through the canyon walls. The Othari ship loomed above them, massive and silent, its blue engines glowing. It sent out a pulse beam that grazed their tail and shook the pod violently. "Systems failing," the computer warned. Daniel fought with the controls, sparks flying from the panel. The pod began spinning. He stabilized it barely enough to guide it toward the moon's dark horizon. "Daniel," Sarai said, gripping the seat, "we can't outrun them." "Maybe not," he said, "but we can make them choose." He redirected the pod toward a field of debris, old wreckage from mining stations that orbited near the moon. Metal fragments drifted everywhere, confusing radar signals. The Othari ship hesitated at the edge of the field. Daniel cut the engines again, letting the pod drift quietly among the wreckage. Minutes passed. No pursuit. The massive ship stayed distant, scanning, uncertain. "They've stopped," she said softly. "For now," he replied. Inside the quiet pod, they sat close, shoulders nearly touching. The emergency lights flickered. "Daniel," she whispered, "I think I finally understand humans." He looked at her. "How's that?" "You don't run from chaos," she said. "You run through it," he smiled faintly. "Maybe that's because chaos is where we find meaning." She reached toward him, her hand trembling slightly. "You gave me something I didn't know existed, choice." He took her hand gently. "You always had it. You just needed someone to remind you." Her eyes glimmered. "If they catch us now, I won't regret anything." He squeezed her hand. "Then whatever happens next, it was worth it." Suddenly a transmission came through, a deep, commanding voice speaking in Othari. Sarai recognized it immediately. "It's my brother," she said. "The Crown Prince," Daniel frowned. "What does he want?" She listened for a moment, translating slowly. "He says if I surrender, they'll spare you. He promises no harm if I return willingly." Daniel shook his head. "He's lying." "No," she said softly. "He's proud but not cruel. He'll keep his word. He just wants me home." "And what do you want?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, then looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I want to stay." He swallowed hard. "Then don't go." She closed her eyes, trembling. "If I stay, they'll come for you again and again. They'll never stop until they find us both. I can't let them destroy you." "Sarai," he started, but she leaned forward, placing her hand on his chest, stopping him. "Listen to me," she whispered. "You showed me what life means. You gave me courage to choose. Now let me use it." He looked into her eyes, realizing what she meant. "You're going back." "I must," she said softly, "but not to surrender. To tell them the truth. To tell them that humans are not a threat. That you are not a threat." He shook his head. "They'll silence you." "Then they'll hear my silence forever," she said. He wanted to argue, but the strength in her voice stopped him. She reached for the pod's emergency beacon and set it to transmit toward the Othari ship. He grabbed her hand one last time. "Sarai, if you go, I may never see you again." She smiled sadly. "You'll see me in the stars. That's where your kind always looks when they hope." The light from the beacon filled the cabin, and she pressed her forehead against his for a single heartbeat. No words, no sound, just the quiet rhythm of two lives touching before parting. Then she opened the hatch. The vacuum pulled at her cloak as she stepped out, her form glowing faintly in the starlight. The Othari retrieval beam reached down like a pillar of blue surrounding her. She turned once more, her eyes finding his through the glass. Then she was gone. Daniel sat in silence as the beam faded and the Othari ship vanished into the distance. The pod drifted alone among the stars. Hours passed before he powered the systems again. He replayed their recordings, every message, every word. Her laughter echoed softly in the cabin. He closed his eyes, listening until the sound became a memory. Weeks later, he was rescued by a human patrol. They brought him back to the colonies, but he never spoke of what happened in detail. He just said that he met someone who changed how he saw the universe. Sometimes, late at night when the sky was clear, Daniel would look up and see a faint streak of blue among the stars. No one else noticed it, but he knew. Somewhere out there, a princess was free, and every time he saw that light, he smiled because even across the distance of two worlds, he could still hear her voice in the silence between stars.